Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. So today I wanted to give you my review on the new Urban Decay Heavy Metals eyeshadow palette. This is what the box looks like right here, and it retails for $55. It is so gorgeous. I have been dying to get my hands on this palette since I saw it leaked on IG several months ago. And this is what the palette itself looks like. So it comes in this really cool box, and the box is like this metallic chrome purple. And what I love is that the palette slides all the way out like this, which how cool is that? So when you slide it out, this is what it looks like. I'm going to try not to blind you guys with the mirror, but you get a really cool mixture of shades in here. So on the one side, you get all these really fun brights. You get blues, purples, greens, you get some yellows in there. And then on the other side, you have all of your neutrals. So you get some browns, some rust, some taupes, and they're all just so pigmented. And I have to be honest, you guys, when I first saw this palette, this side right here was obviously like, I have to have it. This side I wasn't really thrilled about, but now that I have it and I've had the chance to play with it, I love the neutrals just as much as I love the brights. They're just such unique colors, and they really can just be used for anything. Like, I've used these to create kind of more dramatic looks, or even just like almost an everyday look, because some of these are just such beautiful kind of like neutral metallics that you can wear them for like an everyday look if you do it right. And mixing them together with the brights as well is something that I've been doing, and it's just blending them. Oh my God, it's a dream. So definitely in love with this palette. Spoiler alert, if you didn't already know I was gonna recommend it, get your butt to Sephora or Ulta, pick it up, okay? So I am wearing the palette on my eyes today. I have punk rock all over the lid with Scream on the inner and outer corners. I did film this for a tutorial. If you guys are interested, I will link that down below. Now for the swatches, I like to give you guys 3 different swatches for each color in the palette. So what I do is I do one with my finger, one with a brush, and then one with a brush over a primer. And the reason that I do that is anytime you're working with jewel or metallic tone shades, you need to have a base for them to stick to in order to create that really cool metal effect. So one of my favorites to use is the Urban Decay Primer Potion. That's what I'll be using today. You can also use MAC paint pots. You can use the NYX Jumbo eye pencils. Any type of cream base will really work. But let's jump into the swatches, and at the end we will kind of go over everything and give you my final review. So we're going to start with the color Ground, which is this gorgeous graphite gray color. Now right here is the finger swatch, very, very pigmented. And then the middle swatch is a brush only. And then the top is a brush over a primer. And you guys can see that the brush over the primer is a lot more opaque than the just brush alone. Next up is Spandex, which is the darker shade purple in the palette. So right here you have the finger swatch, the brush swatch in the middle, and then the brush over the primer at the top. And again, anytime you're using a brush, you can kind of see that if you want a little bit more of a translucent effect, then you don't put a primer under it. But if you really want it to pop and look more jewel toned, you can either use your finger or use a primer or a base underneath. So Metalhead is the brighter purple shade in the palette. And right here, again, we have finger, brush, and then brush with primer at the top. And as you can see, you actually get kind of different shades of purple depending on the application method with this one. Down here, it looks a lot more jewel toned. This one I would say is a little bit brighter, the brush over the primer. Then you have the more translucent color in the middle with just a brush and no primer. So Mullet is a really gorgeous forest green color. On the bottom here you have the finger swatch, the brush, and then brush over primer. I actually like the way this one looks better with my finger. So all I would do is kind of dip my finger in it and then kind of gently wipe it onto my lid. But it looks really good with the primer as well. I'd say with the primer it almost makes it a little bit more smooth and a little bit brighter looking. This one to me looks a little bit more textured, I feel, as well. This one is twisted and is kind of like a yellow gold. So you have the finger swatch right here. I actually really like the finger swatch on this one. It almost makes it a little bit deeper. Then you have brush and then brush over primer. When you put it over the primer, it definitely makes this color a little bit more bright. Aluminum is such a gorgeous color, and true to the name, it is a silver tone. Now down here you have the finger, the brush in the middle, and then the brush over the primer at the top. I love this one with the primer. I actually think that if you used it without a primer though, you could apply it on top of another color to kind of transform it into a different shade. I have this really gorgeous royal blue. And down here, I actually really like the way this looks without anything on it. This is just a finger application. The brush is very, very translucent on this one. It's also a little patchy, I think. And then over the primer, it really brings out that kind of jewel tone and brightens it up a little bit as well. I'm not really sure how to describe punk rock. It's almost like a red toned pink, but this is the finger swatch right there. I love the way this one looks applied with your finger. It really deepens up that color. The brush is kind of a little bit opaque, but not patchy. And then the brush over the primer right here. This one is actually what I'm wearing on my eyes today. I'm wearing punk rock over a primer, just the Urban Decay Primer Potion. This color is just so pretty and so unique. One of the last bright shades in the palette is Amp, which is this gorgeous aquamarine blue. So you have the finger swatch right here, brush in the middle, and then brush over primer at the top. Now to me, I actually like the way that when applied with your finger, this one is almost a little bit deeper, and then over the primer up here, it's a little bit more brighter and kind of almost makes it more of like an aquamarine color. Glam Rock is this gorgeous light silver color. So down here you have finger, brush, and then brush over primer at the top. This one, even applied just with a brush, is still very, very opaque and very, very pigmented. When you do it with just your finger, you get a little bit more of almost a black undertone, whereas when you do it over the primer, it brings it out to a little bit more of a brighter and whiter shade. Bass is this really pretty deep toned gold color. So right here you have the finger swatch, brush in the middle, and then brush over primer at the top. When you apply this one with your finger, it definitely gives it more of a darker undertone. And then the lighter undertone is when you put the primer under it. Really, really pretty shade. And I love how metallic this one is. Like, it's so shiny. So Demo is a really interesting color. It is a medium toned brown, but when you put it just with your finger, it almost looks a little bit more copper. With the brush, this one is very, very patchy and hard to build up, but when you put it over the primer, it definitely brightens it up and makes it much more opaque and really brings out that pigmentation. And it almost makes it look a little bit more of a gold, but really pretty. So After Party is this gorgeous rust color. Now down here, when you apply it with your finger, it kind of brings out a darker tone to it. With the brush, it's actually still very, very pigmented. And then over the primer, it just kind of brightens it up a little bit. For Rhody, I would almost describe this one as a bronze. So down here with the finger, it is very, very deep. Without any type of primer and a brush, this one can be a little bit too translucent for me, but then when put over a primer, it brightens it up and really brings out that gorgeous bronze color. Now Scream is what I'm wearing on my inner and outer corner today, but I'm not really sure how to describe the color. It's so unique and it's absolutely gorgeous, but I would almost say it's like a brownish pink color, maybe even like a mauve, but applied with your finger, it kind of brings out a little bit more of that deeper color. With a brush, this one can be a little bit too translucent, and then with a primer underneath, it really brings out that bright jewel toned color. So Glory is a very true gold color. Now when applied with your finger, this one kind of brings out a darker tone. With a brush, this one is actually still very, very pigmented. And then over the primer, it kind of just brightens that shade up and kind of smooths it out a little bit as well. Starfire is the copper shade in this palette, and it is so stinking pretty. So down here, this is the finger one. This one pulls a little bit more dark. The middle one, even without a brush, this one actually still applies very pigmented. And then over a primer, it just kind of lightens it up just a little bit. So Angel Fire is almost like a peachy toned gold, and this is what it looks like right here. I was actually really surprised because this one applies much better with a brush over primer than it does with my finger. When I applied it with my finger, it's very, very translucent. And even with just the brush, it actually applies a little bit better. Maiden is a very light toned gold, and this is what it looks like right here. This one, when you apply it with your finger, it makes it look completely different. Like, it almost completely changes the color. With a brush, this one is actually still very, very pigmented. And then when you put it over the primer, it just kind of brings out a little bit more of a lighter tone. Last but not least in the palette is Acoustic, and this is another super unique color. I would almost describe this as a brown toned silver. So this is what it looks like. When you apply it with your finger, it almost makes it look a little bit more silver. And when applied with a brush, I feel like it brings out a little bit more of the brown tones. But then when put on top of the primer, again, kind of lightens it up and smooths it. Really cool, neat color. All right, guys, we made it to the end. 20 colors, 3 swatches each, 60 swatches total. That was a lot of swatches. But these colors are all so gorgeous. I mean, obviously, I highly recommend this palette. The colors are unique. They're so blendable. The pigmentation is amazing. There's so many different application techniques you can do to kind of create all different types of looks with this. I actually already have a few other tutorials in mind, so let me know if you guys would be interested in seeing more tutorials with this, or if there's any specific colors you want to see me use. If you guys do decide to pick it up, please send me what looks you create. I love seeing them. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.